So I want to start out by just saying congratulations on your ASC award nomination and also just the film in general. It's, been a big success and yeah, your work on it is something very special that really stands apart from a lot of superhero movies. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's funny when you talk about it like a superhero film, because you're right, it is. And the approach was never to toe the line when it comes to what's being expected of guys with capes or girls with capes. Like it's a bit of there's a bit of a trope at the moment about what maybe those films might look like. So when we approached the film from the beginning, we kind of didn't approach it the way with that in mind. Obviously we knew the character, we knew DC, we knew the Batman's been around for coming up to almost 100 years. But the trick was to try and get into the mind of this character and the city, and to try and create a mood and a world when the audience watches the film, so they can easily understand where they are and the mood they're in. With the rain and with the night and with the darkness, and it's getting into Bruce's mind, as Batman and as Bruce Wayne. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'd love to talk about how dark the film is. Just visually dark. It can be hard sometimes to get production on board with going so dark with things. What was that process like? And yeah, I mean, how was it lighting? I know you've talked about this, like the struggle of he has a very Robert Pattinson has a very dark costume, and you want to be able to see still that he's Batman, but like also have a very dark world around him. What was that process like?
Well, it was tricky because, of course, it's very tough to watch something that's too dark, and I am a huge I understand that more than anybody, I think, because it was important that this world was dark. That word is so broad. It's such a terrible word to use, because yes, there are times where maybe we didn't expose his costume at 18% gray, which is what the light meter said, but we tried to underexpose it a bit but keep light into his eyes. But it was really important in every frame. I mean, I think 97% of the frames have a very bright area in them at some point. It's either a highlight on a car, or it's a shop in the background that's lit, but trying to keep the essence of the comics, which if you go back to some of the earlier comics, they were drawn very graphically with this sort of dark silhouetted shape on the top of a building and the city's light behind him, and his power comes from what you don't see of him. I think the Batman's power, the shape of that costume. I mean, our costume designers on the Batman obviously did an amazing job, but just Batman as an idea, with the cowl and the ears and the cape, like, he's got an amazing silhouette, which you want to lean into, and you want to recognize that silhouette from afar. And the way I found the best way to do that was to take light off him, and we had to, because again, it's the Dark Knight. Like, he's a Dark Knight. You can't put light. I've said this a few times, but if you see him walking in the supermarket, you'd walk the other way, not because you're afraid of Batman beating you up. You'd be afraid of some weird guy in a leather suit, because it's kind of odd. If you put light on him, he can look kind of odd, but he's so beautiful as a shape, as a character, and as an entity, that you want to kind of remove. This is where the finesse of lighting. I mean, for me, this film was the hardest and most challenging lighting job I've ever done, and the most rewarding, for that matter, because every frame had to be finessed and lit and controlled, and every fluorescent had to be kind of exposed at the right point, where it's just bright enough to be a bright source but not garish. Like, there's a really fine balance there that having to strike. So in that sense, like, it was a huge challenge for me. I think the only other biggest challenges in my career have been like Darth Vader. Darth Vader, with all of his reflections, was not dissimilar. Trying to keep light off him, but reflecting light, but he didn't look like it was chrome ball. So it was a challenge on both those parts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Now, having done this, what do you feel like lighting wise you've learned from the Batman that you're going to bring forward with you into your work in the future?
I mean, I've learned that I feel like darkness needs some antidote, and I think that, and that's what I tried to do a lot with Batman. Like again, take some frames as an example. Like any time that he's backlit with fire, any time that he's backlit with Gotham City streets or fluorescent lights in the background, or fluorescent lights lighting his workshop, keeping him in the dark. Even though, for those scenes in his workshop, he was Bruce Wayne, it still had to have that essence of Batman. He still had a great silhouette as a character. So trying to create sort of brightness so the eye doesn't struggle to make out what's going on, but it kind of understands in an instant what is happening. Film darkness is a film blackness is a weird thing that is most DPs will kind of go, well, we hate it when the producer or someone says, oh, just let it go off to black, and you go, no, that doesn't work in filming like as well as it sounds. Like it doesn't just go off to black. It falls off to lower densities, but there's got to be something in there. Otherwise it can look like a mistake. It can look like the DP's made an error. But there was a couple of times in the script at the beginning, it clearly states, there's a bit of a story beat where it goes around the city and it comes up with a criminal who looks into the darkness, and they're not sure if Batman is in the darkness because he is the shadows. Like he says that he is the shadows. So we had to look over the shoulder of these criminals into blackness. And again, it was really challenging. You would think it's easy, just turn off all the lights. But when you do that, it looks like a mistake. Like it looks like they're against a black cloth or something.
Right.
So you've got to have light, you've got to have exposure somewhere in the frame to show that it's not an error. There's this cavern of darkness, of blackness, is a deliberate artistic intent. And so his reveal was really hard because, of course, there's two reveals in this film that the pressure was on, of course, and that's the first reveal of Batman and then the first reveal of the Batmobile, which is, you go, it's the first reveal of the Batmobile in the series, it has to be good. But his first reveal, like he had to emerge from the darkness, and there's many ways as DP we know how to achieve that. Like you have a light, you cut it so he walks from darkness to light.
Yeah,
that's easy, relatively easy. Tried that, it was like didn't really work that well because it just looked like here he appeared, like it was a bit anticlimactic. So it was trying to find the right way that he, as he approached, the illumination on him slowly grew to the point where you just saw something. Is that him? Is that then you can see him as he comes, but it's not a reveal. It doesn't come out of the light. He emerges from the darkness. And again, as easy as that read in the script, when I was reading it in the script, I was going, oh yeah, it's gonna be good. Oh man, it was tough just to find the right balance, because otherwise it gets a bit cliche, a bit kind of like we've seen these lighting reveals before,
right.
And I have, and I've done them before, so I thought I knew how to do it, but the reality was it took time to find the right finesse.
Yeah. So how did you end up lighting him for that reveal then?
Well, it was a bit complicated, and again, I can't quite exactly reveal I can't quite remember, so I'll reveal everything, but I can't quite remember. I remember we had, of course, a side light motivated from outside of the station.
Yeah.
But I did add some extra light onto him, that as he was coming towards, and I dimmed up a little bit. So, but it didn't look like I was not making it look like I was dimming up light, but I was revealing him at the speed that we wanted to reveal him at. So it was a little bit of that. It was a little bit of top light, and because he worked really well with a bit of top light because it helped shape the cowl, and and I couldn't backlight him in that case either, because again, it's like he comes out into backlight.
Going from the darkness,
I could have, but it's just it's artistic choice that we chose not to really ever backlight or silhouette him with backlight. Or hard backlight anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk about, you said there's two big reveals in this. So Yeah, what was it like working with the Batmobile, and how did you decide to reveal that?
Well, I mean, what was it like? The Batmobile is the Batmobile. It's like every kid's dream.
Yeah.
I desperately wanted to, I desperately wanted to drive it, but I didn't. I don't think I ever had the opportunity. I don't think it was an easy thing to drive, but
Yeah.
I wanted to take it for a bit of a burn down around Warner Brothers, but that wasn't very cool. Um, I mean, again, like it's every kid's dream to look at a Batmobile and then be in charge of revealing that Batmobile for the first time, you know. And
Yeah.
it again, it's that precious thing where you can't just turn the lights on and then suddenly it's the Batmobile. Like it's got to emerge like an animal, like you know, one of the things we references I think I pulled out or we were talking about was the time when I don't know if you've ever been out in the country or in the bush in Australia, or like if you've got a flashlight and you're scanning across a horizon and you might just glance an animal's eyes. Like sheep have this thing where sheep have very big irises or something, and with a light, as you skim across a paddock or something or a field, you can see thousands of these sheep eyes reflecting back at you. You don't see the sheep, you don't see the eyes, you just see the retinas reflecting back,
Yeah.
and it's terrifying. It's terrifying, and we thought, okay, well, when this thing starts, it needs to have that feel where basically it's not all just coming on and revealing like a stage show or something.
Right.
It's got to be a series of like lead ups to, and again, putting the Batmobile in a position where it reveals as a silhouette first, in keeping with our mantra, but then having enough light on it that as it pulls out and then stalls or pulls out and starts to go but then doesn't go, that you then reveal a little bit more of it. I mean, how, you know, like the specifics of that, again, I mean, it's like it was just trial and error. It was just real
Right.
trial and error where we just went, that didn't work. All right, well, the grill light didn't work. There's flames in the grill. I think we dialed those down and we upped the light coming from the rear. And then I think I put a light, not dissimilar, actually, going back to Darth Vader. To reveal Darth Vader on Rogue, we had the same thing where as he turned on the lightsaber, it lit up. But in theory, that lights up and lights his front, which didn't look good. So we used the theory that, well, when this lights up, the silhouette gets lit. And hopefully you don't notice that when the headlights come on, that the back starts burning blue and it creates a bit of a shape of
Yeah.
the Batmobile. Because it was such an amazing design. I mean, that Batmobile, you know, Ash Thorpe, James Chinland, that whole team that built that thing, was incredible design, incredible execution.
Yeah, I mean, that's executed so well on this film. It's unlike any superhero film I feel like I've seen before. It has a very distinctive, different visual aesthetic, which is really fun.
We
This
had, you know,
was
the good thing. Sorry to interrupt you, but the benefit, what we had with Matt Reeves as the director, he had a very strong vision and a very strong voice. So what we wanted to do as creatives was what we were able to do. You know, like you say, like, was there any pushback? Was there any kind of?
right.
Of course, there's concern. Of course, as for me, even like it's like reading a script, night. You read all these pages at a nighttime, and you know what work you have in store for you because you know you have to continually reinvent every night scene so that it wasn't the same as the last scene. You had to change the color enough that it was varied, that the audience wouldn't become visually bored. Um, you know, so everybody recognized that as a night film, that we would have to work extra hard to I don't know to make it work as a visual piece.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about then the post process. I know you did a film out again like you did on Dune, and I wanted to ask what that was like with this film, if that was, you know, a different experience.
Well, you know, again, everything's iterative. Like everything continues, and you add to a process. And I showed Matt the process of the June film out, and he loved it. And we just tested going a step or two further as well. We did a bleach bypass in, I think it was in the negative stage, and then we printed. so we just tried a few different ideas where we sort of did a neg and then we did an IP, and it turned out, and he really responded to the IP because a lot of the references that we were looking at were films set in the 70s. So of course the versions of those films that we've seen have been probably recorded off a print or recorded off a show print or something that's been scanned back in. So it's got this quality that instantly to us feels like that era.
Right.
And so when we were testing the process, we were testing with the ARRI alpha lenses that we were working with ARRI on building for the film. And they come from master anamorphics. Their origin is master anamorphics, which I've never used because I've always found them, for me personally, I've always found them to be a little bit too sharp and lacking the errors in lenses that I love to see. But what they were able to do with those master anamorphics, they were able to expand them and expand the field of view or coverage. And by doing so, the edges became a little bit softer, but the middle retained its sharpness. So because of that sharpness, we then had to go through that film process to bring the sharpness back to a resolution that we were happy to see. So the benefit of doing the film out was that we then had 3 versions of the movie in the grade that we could approach. So, for example, our default setting was the print. And when we found that the print was too soft because the wide shots didn't resolve or, whatever that was, we would then go back to the negative. And then there was 1 or 2 occasions where I think, one of the shots is driving into Wayne Tower as a wide shot. And we couldn't read the words Wayne Tower because the resolution had dropped so far down.
Yeah.
And so then we went back to the original negative and put that in. So what it did is it gave us a chance to kind of choose our resolution that we wanted for each shot, which is not something you can generally do. I mean, you can never do that when you're doing a film print because the wide shot had to sit next to the close-up and they were both the same resolution. So you never got the chance to do that. So to be able to do that meant, again, that we had just full control over every frame. And being able to fully control every frame meant that we were able to sort of create the experience for the audience that we felt was appropriate.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to see where this process goes next, because it's really exciting hearing about this. And I feel like, every time I talk to you, you've figured out something else that you can manipulate more fully to have complete creative control, which is awesome.
It gives it back to DPs a bit, because it used to be, again, I'm maybe showing my age a little bit, but it used to be the fact that we could choose a multitude of film stocks when we shot, and that would then lead to a multitude, well, not a multitude, but quite a few different print stocks as well. So we could choose the shooting stock and then the print stock to come up with a look that we're after, be it Kodak, Fuji, Alpha, Agfa, like push, pull, skip bleach, all those factors. So we had all those options. Now, I know right now we have different cameras we can choose, and different lenses we can choose, and different lights we can choose. But ultimately, like they end up being quite similar. So it's having the film option when you shoot digital, I think, is a fantastic balance. I mean, I always love film too. I would love to shoot another film on film, and I will shoot another film on film because I just love the format so much. What's exciting me is the fact that we know digital's here to stay. There's no fighting it. No one should be under any preconceptions that it's going away, because it's not. So it's like, how do we then work with digital to get it feeling and looking the way we as individuals feel like it should look? And so my opinion might be different to yours, might be different to 25 other DPs that are watching this, but that's what's good, is that they can then take the process and print it, but pull the negative 4 stops, like overexpose it, then pull it, and then thereby changing, the dynamic of the colors.
Yeah.
So there's unlimited options when it comes to the printing process, and it's awesome to experiment with it.
Yeah. That's super exciting. And it adds so many more just paintbrushes to the equation, more things that you can choose. I mean, this is more of like a question I personally wanted to ask, because I just bought these lenses, but the iron glass lenses that you
Mm.
used, I wanted to talk about that, and matching those to the alphas and what that experience was like.
So the backstory on the iron glass is the reason why we use them. We're doing a car chase, as you know. In the middle of the film, there's a car chase, and as in with most car chases, a lot of that gets put into a second unit category. Matt and I were very sort of quite determined to keep as much control of that as possible, because we had great second unit director DP doing it, but at the same time we also had a very clear vision for it, particularly Matt did. So they had to be working concurrently with us, literally at the same time. I think we were maybe doing days and they were doing nights, or whatever the breakdown was. So we needed equipment that they could have and own. Now, practically, there wasn't many alpha sets at that point in time. So that's the true backstory. But at the same time, even if there was an alpha set available, I wasn't convinced that I actually wanted to put that on a car going at 100 miles an hour, an inch from the ground. Because first of all, I mean, I love glass. Like, I'm a glass fiend. And the idea of putting such a piece of beautiful art on the grounds going 100 miles an hour, I'd be a bit concerned about that.
Yeah.
Also, the size of it they're quite large. They're quite large. So all of these things sort of added up to going, all right, well, how do we achieve the goal of making a scene like a car chase work by itself with its own set of lenses without completely changing the look of the movie? And I've been in contact with Alan, who's doing a lot of work with Iron Glass for quite a few years, and he and I get along well because he's a lens fiend as well, and loves all sorts of glass that he can give me information on, and we share tales of different things. And so I tested some of the Soviet glass, some of the iron glass on and we put an oval iris in it, and it felt like it matched. Again, it was significantly different enough scenario that it could be slightly different,
Right.
because we were on the road, we were covered with rain, like it was orange, blue, like it was significantly different enough that it wasn't cutting directly with a different set of lenses.
Right.
But I found that they worked really, really well, and they were so fantastic. I mean, we had these beautiful small little 58 mils, 85 mils.
Yeah,
that
they're
were
really tiny. Yeah.
they're tiny, and they were modified to work for the camera department, and we could put them close to the ground. Again, they're not disposable. No glass is disposable. We don't leave any glass behind in our movies, but they were more lightweight. They were more able to be kind of put into different positions. We bought a couple of old Alexa Classics to use as effectively crash cameras that we could then put really close to the ground or really close to a smash, and not be worried about damaging them, because if we did, they'd just be written off. So we kind of approached it like that, and I love those lenses so much. I've used them again. So I've used them again because they're so good, and they're just, the qualities of those lenses are beautiful by themselves, let alone with the oval bokeh, and then the water effects on them. And well, you know what I've learned, and I'm pretty happy to kind of sing this from the rooftops, is that we are nothing without our equipment. Of course, we are nothing without the teams that take great pride in building our equipment, lenses, cameras, lights. We can't do our job without them. But what I've also learned is that we, as cinematographers, control the aesthetic. And the difference between, and let's use lenses as the perfect example, the difference between a $20 lens and a $20,000 lens is not 19,800. Let's not do the math because it's embarrassing. But like, that's not what the difference in image is. And it shouldn't be. If you can't create a good image with a $20 lens, you shouldn't be using a $20,000 lens. We have to be quite dogmatic and saying we can create great images with any equipment, with the smallest phone or like the smallest lenses or pinhole cameras, or we have to be able to make images and make compelling stories with those pieces of equipment. So it doesn't mean we shouldn't be sort of trying our best to make the best lenses or the best lights or the best cameras, but I think we need to be. That's not how we make our best work. I think we should be sort of pragmatic and trying to make great stories with very little.
I agree. Yeah, I don't, I don't think anyone should be limited by equipment. I mean, I think of Tangerine, and I think of, powerful storytelling that can be done on an iPhone 5, if you can have beautiful images from an iPhone 5, then I think, you can have beautiful images from anything. Yeah.
100% agree with you. And I do take great pride in when we do create something that's groundbreaking, revolutionary, interesting, and I do it with the least amount of equipment as possible. And not just lenses, but also even lights. Like, I love it when you create something with I don't know, there's a lighting scenario in Batman, which is one of my favorites, which is he walks into the nightclub, and he walks down the hallway, and there are flashing red lights, normal nightclub stuff. And I wanted to create some blinders. So I wanted, as he walked in, for the whole place just to light up as if it was being blinded by those lights. And we couldn't find in the rental shop the lights that I needed to just completely blow out. And so we went out, and I think we bought 100 1K floodlights that you use for backyard barbecues. I think it was those type of ones, those tungsten ones. And they were super cheap because, again, you get them at the local Home Depot, and we just put 100 of them in a rig, and
Wow.
and that's one of my favorite lighting scenarios in the whole film. And they come from the cheapest Home Depot light that I was able to find.
Yeah.
And so, but I was like, well, it worked. Why quibble if it's doing the job? It doesn't matter where it came from.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's just a really wonderful sensibility to hear coming from someone who shoots these kind of projects, that have like this kind of scale to still, really just be trying to do things as simply as possible. And I think that that's a really great philosophy to have. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to ask you, what does this nomination mean to you?
Well, I mean, quietly, the ASC nomination is it's the peak for me, because when I was in my meeting at the ASC, I kind of sat there and I was sort of being quizzed by all these fantastic cinematographers that I had the highest regards and the highest respect for. And I think I might have said something like, maybe I didn't say this, maybe I thought it. I was like, I'm not worthy to be in this group. It's like, maybe I didn't say it. I probably didn't actually, thank goodness, because I probably would have not got in. But I was like, I am so not worthy to be in this group. This is a group that has revolutionized and pushed cinematography forward. The American society is the pinnacle of the societies around the world, and its members have made some of the most beautiful films in history. Again, like going back to being a kid, watching all those films as a kid, and kind of knowing that the members had shot those things. And so when I was sitting in that meeting, I was kind of going, you guys are going to be crazy if you're going to allow me in, because I'm not at the level that I should be to be doing this. Now, they obviously disagreed with that theory, and I appreciate that, because it meant that I was able to be more a part of the group. But going back to that point, though, to know that those people, including my peers, and including also young up and coming DPs who are also coming into the ASC now, to know that there's a nomination there, win, lose or draw, it doesn't matter. It's fantastic to be thought of with such high regard. And to your point before, for a superhero film, and it's a film that wouldn't ordinarily, be on the radar of awards, but I appreciate that we were noticed, and that the work that we put in to try and create something that was different, or that suited that story the best, was applauded for what it was. So beyond appreciative.
Yeah. Well, I mean, are there any of your fellow nominees' work this year, films, TV shows, documentaries, anything that, really creatively inspired you this year that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I mean, yeah, the problem is if I do, then it means that I'm not giving a shout out to somebody else who I've probably overlooked and forgotten. So that's where I
Yeah.
will just preface anything I say with, just because I don't say it doesn't mean it's not great. Or
Right.
I've had limited ability to see many things because I've just come off June Part Two, and
Yeah.
the last thing you want to do when you make a movie is watch a movie.
Watch
So
'em.
I've not really been that good, but I have seen some incredible. I mean, Mandy's work on Elvis is inspiring. I did a conversation with her and Baz, and the one thing I sort of was first up to say is like, Mandy's been a hero of mine for years. Mandy was in the same city as I. She was began in Melbourne, and so she was a few years ahead of me. So she had been off working in Sydney and even in America as I was coming up. So I looked at her work with such awe
Yeah.
as well. This fantastic female cinematographer. And at that point in time in Melbourne, in the world, actually, there was very, very few female
Right.
cinematographers. So to look at her work with such awe, she's always been an inspiration to me. So seeing her work with Baz on Elvis was wild. I loved it. I loved her work on it, and I loved the film, and um, I mean, yeah, Darius's work and Roger's work, Claudio's work. No, I mean, that's the thing. They're all fantastic. I did see, and I did interview with the guys that did All That Breathes, the DP
Mhm.
of the documentary All That Breathes, and
Yeah.
I was really inspired by that. Like, it was such a beautiful film, and and it was exactly what I was missing in documentaries. It had a artistry and a rhythm and a beauty that sometimes documentaries don't have, because they're
Yeah.
just simply facts. They're recounting of facts. And I said to the guys when I did the interview, it's like, what a dream job! Like, to be told that you can hold on a shot of mosquitoes for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That you've got the space in a film, in a project, to actually allow a 3 minute edit of mosquitoes. I mean, that's a dream for cinematographers, is to have your images so elevated that they can hold for that long.
Right.
But yeah, it's such a beautiful documentary. So there's some great um, pieces that were shot this year. I can't wait to see who wins. I mean, ultimately it doesn't matter. It's like a huge thing when
Yeah.
people win, but ultimately, again, everybody in that room that's been nominated, I think, has got to be super proud of that.
Yeah. I mean, it feels trite to say like, oh, everyone's a winner already, but like in all honesty, I truly feel that way because it's all incredible work that's been so inspiring to so many people and is really creatively pushed forward. And that's I feel like the biggest win is to do something like that.
No, but you're right though, and it does sound very, very cliched to say, yeah, everyone's a winner.
Yeah.
It's like the first grade running competition. Everyone gets their
Right.
first prize. But no, you're 100% right, because to have the eye of all of those members, and to be told you are in the top of this year's group in their eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't. Yeah, I can't say enough things about that.
Yeah.